Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights Podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I am your host, Lu Ngo, coming to your ears from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's learn together. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Doing Well. And on this week's episode, we are going to talk about living a zestful life. And I'm very excited to talk to our guest of the day today, Lee. By way of introduction, Lee, the founder and director of Transbase, is a registered psychologist and the first author of 4 academic peer-reviewed publications. Lee's publications use strengths-based approaches to improve mental health for trans and gender-diverse TGD people. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lee.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is your first podcast ever. How are you feeling?
I don't know. I've never done it before, so unsure, but curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Curiosity is the key. You know, we're gonna find out how you feel after today's episode. But yeah, no pressure. It'll be fun. I hope you have fun. And I think it's fun to talk about this topic too, because, you know, before we started, we already had a mini discussion about zest and living a zestful life. But I think your background in particular is super impressive, and it's kind of rare to see people doing the work that you're doing. So I'm curious, you know, how did you get into this space, doing the kind of work that you're doing, founding an organization that support TGD people, and also today you're talking about zest. Why zest, right?
Zest? Yeah. Zest is a very attractive quality, I think. It's a quality that the more zest, the more mental health, the higher satisfaction in life, the higher quality of life. It's a very fantastic thing to have. And the population that I work with, the trans and gender diverse community, often there's quite low life satisfaction, quite a lot of mental health difficulties, and surprise, low zest, which my thesis in 4th year found when I conducted research with a trans and gender diverse population, and we had over 800 participants in that, and low zest was found, and high mental health problems. So there's a direct link there.
How did you decide that you wanted to do a thesis on that topic?
Well, I'm trans myself. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm trans, masculine, genderqueer. And I was very fortunate to get into 4th year. It's very competitive with grades. Psychology, it's awful what they do to us. Traumatic even in a way.
No.
Having to get, the grades and limited places. So I was very fortunate to get in. And I thought, well, I want to use this opportunity to do something that I'm going to enjoy and something that I find meaningful, because it was an opportunity to be able to write a thesis. So I picked the supervisor that I wanted, Alex Musap. He's fantastic. I did a bit of interviewing around for supervisors, and I picked him and liked him. And I picked my own topic because I thought I could just do the cookie cutter topics that they give us, or I could actually do something that I'm going to enjoy, and something that might actually help my community, being a trans person myself. So I did a whole lot of research, and what I found was all the research was very doom and gloom, misery. It's very hard to be trans, mental health, housing, it was quite depressing reading a lot of that stuff. And I thought, well, there's no shortage in the difficulties that trans people have in terms of the research. It feels like it's been done to death. There's a lot of it. And I thought, well, I want to do something a little bit different. So I started reading, and I came across positive psychology.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that trans people don't have a very difficult life, because the research says that. But no one was looking at what we are actually doing that basically shows how we're thriving and how resilient and strong we are in spite of discrimination and gender dysphoria. So I was very curious what I could find there. And I picked my topic. Alex gave me a lot of freedom, which I thrive when I'm given freedom. And he said, as long as you can measure it, and as long as you can get the participants and we can get ethics approval, you're pretty much free to do whatever. As long as if there's a problem, I'll let you know. But he gave me a lot of freedom, and I thrive with freedom. So I did a bit of reading, came across the positive psychology VIA, values in action, and it looks at 24 character strengths. So it's kind of like almost a little bit the opposite of the DSM, which diagnoses weaknesses and illnesses and difficulties that people have, whereas the VIA, values in action, diagnoses strengths, and there's 24 of them, and they're universal. And Zest is one of the 24.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. And I remember you were saying this before we started the recording. Zest, people with zest are just more attractive. It's just, you just want to be around them more because, they are naturally, you're probably showing a lot of curiosity as to what we're just talking about, right? Showing a lot of creativity and just the energy.
The enthusiasm. Yeah, I want to be around zest. Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? So true. I think it's a good topic to talk about, but I don't think we should discount the fact that sometimes not having zest is a bad thing because, sometimes we all go through life, we have struggles, and then that's what we talk about in well-being. And then on this show, it's not about being bright and happy all the time.
Absolutely.
Maybe a zestful person can go through a low period where they need to find their way back to, feeling zestful again. So
well, highs wouldn't feel so good if they didn't come with the lows. And I think what you're kind of tapping into might be, there's a phrase called toxic positivity.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, oh, just be happy. It's fine. Look at the bright side.
Yeah.
And that is so damaging because it's really invalidating.
Yeah.
And, that's, with, say, positive psychology, it's really important to identify and acknowledge the hardships and the barriers. And at the same time, look at things that are going well, kind of, and have a balance of things rather than toxic positivity and forcing positivity down people's throats when they're actually really suffering, because that's invalidating and that's harmful. But it's about weighing up things and holding, all the things can be true at the same time.
Yeah, totally. Well, we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but I found that to be extra interesting, so I had to throw it in. We'll keep that as a teaser. We'll come back to the topic. We'll come back to the topic.
Stay tuned.
In a little bit. Right now, we have this section to get to know you a bit better, to get some of your recommendations. We know about your work, but I like this part because now we get to know what you enjoy in life. So this part is called Have You Met Lee? I'm just going to ask you a few questions, get some of your recommendations. First question is my favorite one to ask. What is a book you would recommend?
A book that I would recommend. Okay. I don't actually read a lot of books, surprisingly. Thesis trauma. But a book that kind of really stood out to me, and I recommend actually to clients as well, is called Conflict is Not Abuse. And it looks at kind of in queer kind of community, sometimes having conversations can be difficult, and it's easier to say someone's abusive rather than actually having a hard conversation that maybe this conflict is uncomfortable. And it's, there's this in queer community, there can be this thing called like lateral violence, where we sometimes lash out at each other and bring each other down because hurt people. But I found this book to be quite influential in sort of identifying, like what's my stuff, what's my trauma, what's other people's stuff, what's other people's trauma and stuff like that. And it's a bit of a provocative title, Conflict is Not Abuse.
Yeah.
It's a little bit juicy.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll put that on my reading list. Okay, next question. What is a movie you would recommend?
The movie that I recently saw that I enjoyed the most would absolutely be the Barbie movie.
Oh, love it.
It is fantastic. I love Barbie.
Yeah.
I did see Oppenheimer last night.
Okay.
It went for 3 hours too long.
How was
and
that?
There were too many men in it. Like I could probably count on one hand how many women were in Oppenheimer, and there were, I don't think, any Japanese people. And it's about like with the bomb. I was like, it's all about white men. Like, so I can confirm Barbie, in my opinion, is better than Oppenheimer.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for saying that. I had a guest recommend the same movie the other day. And I was saying this. I said that already, but I'm going to repeat it for your benefit because you didn't know what I talked about. So I was saying I got tickets to Oppenheimer. And after some reviews from friends, they were all saying, just skip Oppenheimer and see Barbie, okay? And I canceled the ticket. I only went to see Barbie, and no regrets, because ever since then, my belief has been confirmed. It's just so interesting how everyone's kind of like hyping up Oppenheimer, and everyone was thinking it would be better. And then Barbie ended up sort of winning, in my opinion, because, it's really meaningful.
Absolutely.
Oppenheimer was, I think the whole storyline is probably depressing. I mean, if you really want to get to know history, a documentary.
History from the perspective of a cis white man.
Yeah, a documentary would probably be a bit better than, a movie. Like you were saying, especially pointing out the fact that it's just full of white men and there were barely any women, barely any Japanese people. Well, now I feel so great that I canceled the ticket. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you didn't miss out on much.
I did not miss out on anything. Thank you for that. Okay, so you are a first-time podcast guest. I wonder if you listen to podcasts.
I listened to the Emotion Focus Therapy podcast by Dr. Lu Cooper. I've done the bulk of my training in emotion focus therapy, and Dr. Lu Cooper is just absolutely fantastic.
Okay. This is my first time hearing that. I'm going to put it on my list. And while I'm putting it on my list, I want to know who your role model is. This could be a famous person or just someone in your life.
Yeah. I mean, there aren't many trans kind of role models out there, but I would say the person that I kind of, really admire would actually be, pop star singer Pink. I really love how she just wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's just an open book. She's quite emotional and expressive, and what you see is what you get, and I really value that honesty and transparency and authenticity.
She's coming to Melbourne, isn't she?
I have tickets, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I was about to ask, are you seeing her? Yes, I love that.
Yeah.
My friend wanted to go, but I was on the fence because I've been to way too many concerts this year. So I'm kind of like, yes,
she didn't make the cut.
I do love Pink, but I've been to many concerts and
She's just never put on a bad show. Like I've always seen her live. She's fantastic. Like,
now you're convincing me. Like now, because she added a second show I saw in my email yesterday. So. Okay.
Maybe it's a sign.
Maybe it's a sign that I'm talking to you today. Maybe I should go. Okay, I'll consider it. Thank you for that. Okay, final question in this part. What is a course you've completed that left a really strong impact on you?
Now, I could say the obvious, the Masters in Professional Psychology, but I don't want to, be that predictable. Back when I was in my early 20s, I did a Certificate 2 in automotives, and I learnt a lot about cars. And, back then in my early 20s, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea after high school. So I thought I'll learn about cars because I didn't grow up learning about cars. Like I was assigned female at birth. I didn't learn about cars. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be masculine and learn about cars. And we get to wear the overalls and the boots. And as a result of that, I can talk car. Like when I take my car to the mechanic, I sound like I know what I'm on about. Like I can talk car. I decided to not pursue the automotive profession. When I learnt the long hours, the early mornings, the strain strain on the lower back
Ooh.
and the low pay.
Yeah.
I decided to not pursue, but I can talk car. Yeah. I know what the bits are called and what they do. Yeah.
Okay. Do you follow any sports with car, like Formula One?
Absolutely not. But I like to look like I can talk car so that the mechanic doesn't rip me off.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Really interesting. But yeah, I love that. It's a really it's fascinating. What people decide to learn because in your case, it's kind of like, okay, I want to sound like I know cars, and I want to get to know that masculine side. I want to learn about cars, even though I don't really care for it.
I had every intention of becoming a mechanic when I did the course, but then I later learned all this other stuff, and I didn't want to do it. But I'm so glad that I can talk car because you get ripped off from mechanics a lot of the time, especially if they perceive you to be a woman, like the stuff they say.
Should I take that course?
Oh, well, if you can talk car,
I should take that course. I can talk cars. Good
It's
point.
helpful, I think.
Good point. Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Okay, see, now we get to know you a bit better. And it's time to talk about our topic of the day, living a zestful life. So we kind of teased the audience a little bit earlier when we were talking about well-being, because obviously we were talking about living a zestful life in the context of well-being. So let's start with well-being. This is what the show is about. And well-being means different things to different people. I wonder what your personal definition of well-being is.
Well-being. Well, it was one of the measures that I used in my thesis.
Okay.
The PWI, the Personal Wellbeing Index. It has 8 items that are very short and sweet.
Okay.
And it measures, quality of life, sort of personal safety, community connectedness, security, that kind of stuff. It's kind of like all-encompassing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like life satisfaction, kind of that kind of stuff, like personal well-being, kind of, yeah.
Yeah, but what does it mean to you personally?
What does it mean to me? Oh, okay, I'm getting called out. Well-being, how well are you going? How are you going? Like, I feel like it's a very general question. Personal well-being, how are you? For me, it's a general kind of question, like a temperature check. How are you going? How's your well-being? Kind of, yeah.
So when someone asks you that question, how often are you completely honest, and how often are you like sort of, maybe shielding some aspects from people? Because it depends on the audience you're talking to.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, if you're talking to yourself, I'm hoping, and I'm sure you're honest with yourself. But when it comes to talking to other people, what's the case?
As you said, it's the audience. I mean, it's the social polite thing to say, oh, I'm good. How about you? Good. And then the conversation ends, and it's very surface level, quite shallow kind of thing. I mean, it depends who you're talking to. Is it kind of somebody on the bus? Is it somebody is it your best friend? Is it your partner? Is it your parent? Depends on the audience. Is it your lecturer? I think it's very dependent on who it is.
Yeah. I asked that question because I find that when you're talking to different audience, you probably have like different kinds of checklists. And so if we look at it from that perspective, when you talk to yourself about your well-being, what is in that checklist?
What is in my own personal checklist? For me, the very first thing is, how does my body feel? Like tuning into body. Like, is there anything sort of tense? Am I tired? Like, for me, like body is the first thing.
Yeah, physical health.
Yeah, like, am I hungry? Am I tired? Kind of thing. And if I'm not, then my well-being is probably a little bit better on the checklist.
Yeah.
Then, how I'm feeling. Maybe am I spending time in places that I want to be spending time in?
That's a good one.
Yes and no, like, is it, because that, to me, am I kind of spending time where I feel it's meaningful? Sometimes we have to spend time where it's not meaningful, and doesn't make us feel very good.
That's interesting to know, because, a lot of our days would be spent at work. And sometimes it is meaningful. Sometimes it is not. And then outside of work, it's kind of the same case where you have places to go, people to see some days, and some days you just by yourself. So I think it's a very intentional thing. And, that's interesting when you mention it in the context of well-being, because I guess one thing we haven't covered on this show yet, I believe, because we talk about physical health and mental health, emotional health a lot of the times, but we probably don't talk about how we spend our time on the show just yet when it comes to well-being. And I think that's a really good aspect to cover, because I think when I look at my own like well-being audit checklist sort of thing, if I'm feeling great, it means that I have been spending my time well. I've been intentional about how I'm spending my time.
Going to
it's kind
some
of like
concerts and things.
going to some concerts. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like an interesting relationship there that I started to notice. If I'm just spending time, let's say with someone, say a friend or an acquaintance, for the sake of spending time with them, rather than actually enjoying the time spent or, gaining new knowledge or just feeling zestful after their interaction, then I'm like, oh, maybe that was just me running away and I wasn't really intentional about how I wanted to spend the time.
Did I feel obligated?
Yeah. And sometimes you run away, you run away from your own life. So that's a really good indication of well-being, which to me sounds like people are probably thinking, as long as I'm spending my time doing what I enjoy, that means my well-being is great. It might not be entirely true, because in that moment you might think, oh, I'm enjoying this. But if you look at the big picture, you might not be enjoying it actually. It's just an illusion that you're giving yourself.
To make yourself feel a little bit better about doing something you don't actually enjoy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
we trick ourselves.
Yeah. So that's probably one of the misconceptions. And what about other misconceptions?
About sort of well-being?
Yeah. What are some of the big misconceptions that you've noticed people have, or, maybe people you work with, maybe people in your life, or maybe even yourself? Yeah.
I think that the biggest sort of misconception about well-being, I would say, is that well-being is just about physical health. With well-being, it's about sort of emotional, sort of mental health, social, kind of financial, occupational, spiritual, even. Like it's kind of like all-encompassing.
Yeah.
And I think when we think of well-being, I'm sure Google kind of would show images of a physical health and people going to the gym and that kind of stuff. It's
meditating,
Zen. Zen kind of live, laugh, love kind of stuff. Yeah.
Eat, pray, love.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That is true. That's true. I think it's a big misconception. It's not one thing. It's multiple things at the same time. And I think one of the key things that we've mentioned on the show a couple of times, and I wonder how you feel about this, is the fact that there needs to be a sense of balance in all those different aspects. And, on some days, let's say your physical health and your emotional health are kind of great, but, spiritually, mentally, not entirely. And it's okay. It's kind of like this constant balance of figuring out what you need to tend to a bit more. So, like if you're feeling great physically, but emotionally and mentally you're not really okay, then you need, that you need to pay attention to those aspects a bit more. And it's totally okay to feel not that okay sometimes.
Absolutely. And this whole like culture of toxic positivity kind of says we can't. We have to be happy all the time. And if we're not happy all the time, then you're doing it wrong. Whereas like sometimes it's okay to kind of actually be struggling.
Yeah.
And, with the good comes the not so good and the everything in between. But the toxic positivity, that kind of live, laugh, love, eat, pray, love kind of stuff. Like we're not allowed to allow time for pain. And I've done the bulk of my training in psychology with emotion-focused therapy. It's about tapping into pain because, it's invalidating to always kind of be happy all the time. And it's also not true or sustainable. It's, not honest.
Yeah, that's true. And also we're talking about, well-being and living this life that we all have. We all have one life. And I think it's very important to live a fulfilling life, right? It's not about just, okay, I'm just going to go through my days and live my life. It's not really like that. It's also take it to the next level of your well-being. It's about living a meaningful life. And that's where we start to talk about zest, which is the key topic of today. So how would you define zest in that context of living a fulfilling life?
Zest, the very, very attractive quality.
Yeah.
It's not just the outer peel of a citrus fruit that adds the juice from the fruit. It's about, I guess, courage. It's about perseverance, like honesty, kind of enthusiasm. It's passion.
Yeah. It's a lot of different things, I feel. And I guess it's kind of hard to identify sometimes because I don't know if our audience can relate to this, but to me, it's kind of like sometimes I would talk to a person. It could be a podcast guest or, a random person. I go to the store and I talk to, the staff there or something. And there's something about them that just
You can't really pinpoint it. You're like, I just enjoy being around this person.
Yeah. I just really love talking to this person. I wish I had more people like this person in my life. And, when I was looking at the topic of today, I was like, that's it. Zest. They have zest.
Yeah. It's a word that we don't use a lot of, actually. Yeah, but you're right. It's something that we can't really pinpoint kind of what it is, but we enjoy them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's really cool to notice it around us. And I guess as we mentioned before, just at the beginning of the conversation where I said, it's totally okay if you have the zest, but you lose it, or if you don't have it yet and you're kind of like looking for it. It is a great thing to have for our well-being, as you kind of briefly touched on the definition and how it looks and how it feels. But, not having it is also not a bad thing. And, we can work our way towards it. It's kind of like, let's say resilience. Got to work on it. It's not like, oh, if you don't have it now, you're never going to have it. It's kind of like, I think we can all train ourselves to look at that in a more like scientific way. Think like a scientist. You can change and you can work on yourself, right? So we touched on what zest looks like and sort of feels like, but how does it impact our well-being?
Well, the more of it, the higher well-being, the higher life satisfaction, and the better mental health. Like it directly does impact our well-being.
Yeah.
It's very helpful to have zest.
Yeah.
And it can also be a reflection of maybe our well-being, maybe not doing so well if we don't have as much zest. It's a indication of because the things are linked.
That's a good point, because on the one hand, we have, having zest will mean you have a better level of well-being, but not having it will be an indicator for you to know, oh, maybe my well-being has not been that great. You know what? I think that's such a good point.
Maybe I need to look into that and maybe kind of spend some time self-caring, connecting with friends, getting some mental health care support. Maybe I kind of, need to, pay attention to this. What is this telling me?
So true. Yeah. And I think it's such a good indicator, because sometimes, and this is how people sometimes describe their well-being. Oh, I feel weird. I feel meh. I feel blah, blah, blah. So there are a lot of words that people describe, but it sounds like another way to look at it is I'm feeling a lack of zest. Right? It sounds
That's a much more interesting conversation, isn't it?
Yeah. That will be a better conversation. I'm feeling a lack of zest. Okay, what can we do about it? Right? So that leads me to my next question. So what are some of the examples, right? We know zest is important. What are some of the examples of having this zestful mindset and how it can positively influence our daily activities and our attitude in life?
As in how we can sort of identify how do we get more zest? Is that kind of the question?
I think it's not that, but it's more so. We'll come to that for sure.
Yeah.
But let's start with first of all, how important it is, because having this mindset is something that I don't think a lot of people have. So when we adopt this mindset, how would that change our lives, basically, in simple terms? Let's say, okay, I'm feeling a sense of lack of zest right now. And I, listened to the podcast that Lu did with Lee. I learned that it's important. I adopt the mindset. After that, how would my life change?
I would imagine that like you could be that person with the zest and the people that the person everyone wants to be around. I mean, when people have zest, we're drawn to it like a moth to like a glowy light. Like
Yeah.
we want more of it. Like
Yeah.
it's attractive.
Yeah. So anyone in your life you can think of, or like any maybe even fictional character that has that sense of zest, because I think it will be good to paint a picture for our audience, right? For a lot of people, this is probably the first time they're thinking of the word zest. It's not citrusy. You know, this is not
Although,
like,
it is nice. You know, the fruit, but
it's zesty.
Yeah.
But this is a different kind of zest that we're covering. It's quite scientific in a way because it's, you know, as you said, it's one of the 24 character strengths. So in reality, how would that character strength sort of manifest in our lives, right? We touched on, okay, it'll be great for your well-being, you'll be more enthusiastic and things like that. But in reality, is when we're going through our daily activities, how does that look like? You know, would there be, you know, maybe a movie character or like an actual person, you know, that display this? And how does that feel for them? How would that impact their lives in general? Because I think it's not just the daily activities, it accumulates and then it leads to a meaningful life, perhaps. Because we're talking about fulfilling life, right?
Yeah, not doing things sort of half-assed, kind of doing things to the full and actually enjoying it, like doing things completely, kind of. I'm not having any famous role models come to mind. Do you? Or
I was thinking about Barbie, actually.
Barbie? Oh, yes, that's right. Barbie,
Yeah.
yes. She possibly is zest.
Yeah. I mean, at the beginning, it was kind of like a little bit like toxic positivity.
In the dollhouse.
But towards the end, I feel like there was a lot of zest there.
When
Because
she banded together with the other Barbies. Yeah.
Because it shows like a sense of purpose. She was, you know, obviously she was really down, then she got back up again. Spoilers alert. Sorry for anyone who
I mean, what movie doesn't have they get down and get back up again?
Yeah,
it's a general movie.
But spoiler alert, she didn't end up with Ken. I think that's a really
that's a spoiler. Yeah,
that is a spoiler. So if you haven't watched the movie, skip this part. But she didn't end up with Ken, and I feel like this is a really good example of zest because to me, it's like knowing exactly who you are. And not letting the opinion of other people or the opinion of society define your action. And so because you are really, you know, like just in tune with yourself, you're happy with where you're at, or, you know, you're happy with not knowing even. I feel like that is an example of zest rather than, like I know exactly what I want to do. Like everything is figured out. It's kind of different in Barbie's case because she basically didn't have anything figured out by the end of it. And she was kind of like, okay, now I need to find myself. And finding myself means I'm not with Ken. That's not my identity. I don't feel it for this person, you know? And I feel like that is a really good example of perhaps a different way to look at zest. Because it's easy for me or anyone who's new to the concept to say, okay, now that I've listened to the definition you guys are talking about, it sounds to me like this person wakes up, you know, they go through their routine, they know exactly what they're doing in their day, and they're just like happy, smiley all the time.
Toxic positivity.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I think like, when I think about Barbie and, you know, as a sort of like a role model obsessed, I'm kind of thinking like what comes to mind is like a curiosity about the unknown rather than a dread of the unknown kind of thing. Like I'm interested. I don't know the answer, but I'm actually curious about the journey.
Yeah, I think that is a really good way to look at it, because if we define zest in such a positive way, maybe we'll scare our audience because they'll be like, but I don't have anything figured out. How can I have zest?
I mean, zest isn't really about the outcome, or you know, like it's kind of it's a doing. It's something it's a being. It's a way of I guess navigating through things rather than an outcome of you know, this is the answer kind of thing. It's a doing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good to hear.
Doing zest.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to kind of point out to the audience, because if we don't point out that nuance, perhaps we're going to get sucked in that toxic positivity loop again, because it's like zest sounds like something that is so positive, right?
You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
I think it's more something you do.
Yeah.
An attitude.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. Okay. So you mentioned before, you know, like being zestful, like having this zestful mindset can impact your well-being in different aspects. And, mental health, emotional health, those are some of the key aspects. And then obviously we have relationships, we have career, because, those are the key aspects of life. So how would you see zest influence these different aspects of life if we were to categorize like how it manifests, in reality when we look at the different examples, or maybe even in your own life? Yeah.
How can zest kind of manifest?
Yeah. How does it look in different aspects? Like, mental health, emotional health, career, relationships.
Yeah. I would imagine that zest, he'd be quite resilient because it's not all like, I guess end of the world if you don't have the answer or know where you're going. I'm curious about how to navigate through hardships, I think. Like, the uncertainty with work or uncertainty with relationships or finances or, all kinds of things. Like, navigating through that in a zestful kind of way, in a curious, passionate kind of like make the most out of the situation, rather than kind of, I'm doomed and stuck and dreading and hating it. How will I work through this kind of thing?
That sounds like a really good way to approach career. Because I think a lot of people feel stuck in their career.
And zest is about creativity kind of, and not stuckness, kind of like movement.
Yeah. So let's just give that, go deeper into that and give a little bit more context to it. Let's say we have career and there's that, stuckness that someone is probably experiencing. And now they want to shift towards that zestful mindset. Obviously, in our career, there are so many things, right, that ties into it, the way we live, the amount of money we need to make to sustain a certain lifestyle. We need to take care of family, ourselves. Maybe we have children, partners, pets. So how can we shift towards that mindset if we're a little bit stuck right now and we want to shift towards having a more zestful mindset? What should be some of the things that we can try?
The first thing that kind of comes to mind is identifying the barriers to what is keeping me stuck. What's keeping me in this chokehold kind of? Is it like a relationship that drains you? Is it a job that drains you? What is it that's keeping you stuck? And is there a way to wiggle from that? Because it's going to keep us stuck. How much can I move if I'm stuck? So kind of identifying barriers, and then I'd say once the barriers are then kind of, we've moved as much as we can, like sometimes like reflecting upon when was the last time I felt passionate or did something creative, or when was the last, and what was I doing? And can I do more of that? Kind of thing. Like when was the last time I felt like I could just never shut up about that topic. I can just go on and on. Because, that finding your passion is a part of zest. Like we can do things more when we enjoy them, kind of thing. Like, what's your passion? It's what's your zest kind of thing.
That is such a good point. I think I read somewhere the other day, nostalgia is such an incredible tool when you're in tough times. Because then you can recall the good times that have come, and then you can kind of try to recreate, the journey to get to that certain feeling. And it also reminds you that, hey, you felt that zestful before. You can feel that way again, because we constantly change as humans, right? We probably change our minds about the career we want. We change our minds about where we want to live. And so sometimes it's this constant up and down. And then we just kind of, we probably strive for having all the ups all the time, toxic positivity. So it's hard to adjust, and nostalgia is great to remind us of that. And it's great because then you can sort of shift towards doing the activities that would bring zest, right? Because we were talking about it. It's not about like having it. It's about doing. What can we do to bring more zest into our lives? And I think it's actually really hard in tough times. It's hard to say, oh, I'm so passionate about, let's say, singing. I'm going to sing more. Because when you're a little bit sad and depressed, the last thing you want to do is sing, probably. So yeah, I think constantly reminding ourselves and doing our best to, maybe just do 5 minutes of singing today and then 10 minutes tomorrow.
Be a bit more realistic, kind of, not unrealistic.
And ease yourself
I'm
back
going to go
in.
to the gym for an hour every single day, rain, hail or shine.
Yeah.
Who's going to do that? It's like, toe in the water, just like a little bit that's like realistic kind of thing. And I guess when we're depressed, we kind of stop doing a lot of enjoyable stuff.
Exactly.
We stop doing zest because zest is quite, linked to depression. We stop doing it and thinking, when was the last time I didn't feel depressed? Or, rather than, when was the last time I felt zestful? What was I doing back then? Can I do more of it?
Yeah, that's so true. I think it's also important to remind ourselves that maybe there are new things we can try. Because I think for me, particularly, I find that it's incredibly hard to try new things when I'm down in the drain. I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do. Like, skating? No, thank you.
Of course.
It sounds fun.
New things are hard. So that's why sometimes reflecting upon things that we have done that are familiar, that we know we definitely enjoy.
But I have to say, when I'm forced to try new things, I actually feel better. Maybe that's a way of bringing zest into our lives. And it depends a lot on the circles we have, right? Because if you have a really strong and great circle, chances are your friends are going to see that, oh, hey, you're a little down. What can we do to change this? Hey, let's try something new. Let's go here, go there, do this, do that. My best friend does that for me. And I'm like,
I booked a ticket to somewhere. You're coming. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my best friend was saying. Is she just kept forcing me to do things because I've been having a tough couple of months. And then she's like, do you want to go to Cirque du Soleil? Okay, let's go. I'm like, what is that? And she sends me the information. I'm like, oh, that looks really cool. It is actually something I would enjoy. Let's do it. Yesterday, she was like, oh, do you want to go see a comedy gig tonight? I was like, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable. Initially, when I heard the idea, I was like, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. But then...
Not in the front row.
No, I was in the front row.
Oh, you were in the front row.
Let me tell you the story.
This is traumatic.
Let me tell you the story, okay? So I was like, okay. Watching it, okay. Even the idea of watching it was already scary to me, right? I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable doing things right now. I don't normally go see comedy in person because I just enjoy watching it on Netflix. Anyway, but I was like, you know what? Maybe I should say yes to this because when I feel like saying no, maybe that's when I should be saying yes. I didn't know that this was going to bring zest, but hear me out. So I agreed to go and we went, and this is my first time being in a smaller local comedy club kind of thing. Every other tables at the back were reserved. So the only table left was in front of the mic.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We were late because we were late. We were 2 minutes late. And I was like, I'd never been to a comedy gig before. The small one in person. I've been to the big ones where you sit in the back and it's fine.
You can sneak in the back.
Yeah. My first time being in such a small scale comedy thing. I sat in the front and I was in no mood to talk to anyone. But when, I don't remember the name of the lady, but when the lady who was sort of facilitating the other comedians, she's a comedian herself, she was asking the audience, she looked me straight in the eye and she was like, do you guys know each other? And I was in a funky mood. I was like, no. I was being funny, but then I think she probably didn't get my joke. So she moved on to another table and then it was fun. And then we came back from the break and she was like, she looked at me straight in the eye again. She was like, how was your break? I was like, good. And then she went, this girl's been giving me one word answer all night. And then I enjoyed that. I laughed at it because it was fun, She
called it for what it was.
Yeah, but it was actually funny.
You're not doing it. You're in a bit of a mood.
Yeah, but it was actually funny for me because I'm like, oh, I am in a mood, but I'm allowed to be in whatever mood I want to be in.
It's kind of like mom energy. I'm a teenage child and it gives one word answers. Does she mom you?
Well, I laugh at all your jokes. So, it's fine. It was fun. It was really uncomfortable. But after that experience, I came back and I was like, oh, it was uncomfortable to be in the front row. Now I know next time I probably don't want to be there. But it was actually fun. It was different. It was like, it brought me
It shook things up.
new energy.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I feel great. Like, it was uncomfortable in the moment because I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just wanted to enjoy the show. I didn't want to be part of the show. But it was actually fun. You know? So it was kind of like, well, it was challenging and traumatic for me because I'm way too introverted for any of that. But it brought a little bit more zest to my life.
A little bit
and
more zest.
I'm glad I did that. You know, I'm glad I went to that comedy
You
gig.
survived it.
I survived it.
That's
And I'm
the front
glad
row.
I'm glad I said yes to the experience. Oh, a funny story. I haven't told you. So the best part of the night was when my friend told me, oh, let's go because ticket is $15 and I can bring a friend because they said 15 plus BF.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then we went there. We got there and the guy was really nice and he was like greeting me and I was like, oh yeah, my ticket's here. My friend came to him. She was scanning the ticket. She was like, oh, and by the way, I saw that it's 15 plus BF. It means I can bring my friend, right? This is my friend. That's the ticket. And he was like, oh, BF is booking fee.
Not best friend. Yeah.
Not bring a friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm done for the night. This is comedy enough for me. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you and good night.
Thanks for the laugh.
Yeah, so
5 stars.
I was having fun with it as well. And I was kind of like being able to joke around. And it's so different because, you know, being in a comedy club, I was kind of conscious of the fact that this is supposed to be fun. So yeah, I made jokes. It was fun. And, you know, we had a good laugh. And the whole experience, though a little uncomfortable, was really helpful.
And it's like that balance, you know, there is a little bit of uncomfortable awkwardness, but also a little bit of fun. Like it's sort of, you know, range of things.
100%. And, you know, we're talking about zest. And I think it's just good to point out, in my opinion, having gone through that yesterday with, you know, that experience and survived it, I would highly recommend trying something that you're probably against. Probably a little bit hesitant to try. But, you know, when you try new things like that, it brings a lot of zest into your life. And, you know, I saw, I think about 6 or 8 comedians yesterday, and it was just like great to hear from different people. And then it started giving me ideas. I started feeling like this sense of connectedness to life.
Social connectedness when we're down in the dumps.
I don't know, just something about it. It was really nice. And, you know, like when we were talking about zest earlier, I was thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? This is probably how you bring more zest into your life. Maybe just try new things and, you know, obviously have great friends. And to have great friends, you have to make friends, obviously.
To put effort in, and time and nourish them.
Exactly. So, you know, maybe that's what our audience can try. Just in my opinion, not an expert. Okay, so before we move on to something more practical, is there anything else in this topic that you would like to perhaps talk a bit more about when it comes to, you know, the concept of zest, maybe, you know, living a fulfilling life, a meaningful life, having more zest and doing more? Anything else that you want to touch on that we didn't get to cover?
I think we covered it pretty well. I think it's something that you don't either have or don't, you know, you either have or don't have. It's something you can do. Like it's not set in stone. It's not, I am just not zestful. I'm, you know, I'll never have zest. It's an active kind of process. It's a thing you do and you can get more of, and you know, with the more passion and kind of, you know, that you can find. Yeah, just say like, you know, it's not all you have it or you don't. It's not that black and white. Yeah,
totally. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a mindset thing that, you know, we can all adopt. Okay, now let's talk about something a bit more practical. We sort of discussed this earlier going into the podcast. We were like, what are we going to talk about? But I'm keen to talk about this now because I think it's personal to you, but it is probably going to be applicable to a lot of other people. So what is a practice that you personally do to live zestfully?
Yeah, I had to really think about this because there's nothing that I kind of think that I'm doing so that I will get more zest, or it's not something I had thought about too much before. When I need to recharge, something that sparks a lot of creativity and that I did a lot, particularly when I was writing my thesis, was lifting weights in the gym. And part of that's sort of tied to being transmasculine and wanting to have muscles and be strong, and all of that. But there's something about like lifting heavy weights, like, deadlifting, bench press, like really heavy weights, like, and I've done powerlifting kind of comps and stuff.
Oh, cool.
There's something about lifting heavy weights, and particularly at a gym, seeing your muscles bulge out. I have my best ideas when I'm lifting heavy weights in the gym. Like, I had my best ideas for my thesis when I was lifting heavy weights. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the heart rate going and the blood kind of rushing to the body, particularly when you're like deadlifting like 100 or so kilos. There's something, it just brings out a lot of ideas that I wouldn't have had. There's something about lifting heavy weights. Yeah.
That's super cool. I love that. I think we all have our own version of weightlifting, any sort of physical activity, I guess, because for some people it's running.
Yeah. I hate cardio. I actively avoid it. Okay. I'm allergic to cardio, but I love to lift heavy weights.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Yeah. I cannot lift weights. I haven't tried. Not that I cannot. I haven't tried, but I do love doing Pilates, like reformer Pilates is really fun for me. I love doing fitness circuit, which is actually cardio that you hate.
My excuse is I have asthma. I can't possibly do fitness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with fitness circuits because I hate it when they're explaining the circuit to me.
Oh, yeah.
But I love it when I'm doing it. And I love it when I'm out of that
in the flow of it.
room. Yeah. Like it just feels amazing.
The movement.
Yeah, the movement. And also because everyone is doing something.
Feels like you're part of a team. Like, say like with team sports.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of we all are on the same side.
Yeah.
And kind of quite connected.
Yes.
Kind of thing. I think with like, say, gym and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of like, I've got to be thin and fit. But, when it's sort of more about, I want to move my body because I want to feel good rather than I want to look good.
Yeah.
This is when we kind of get, I think, better outcomes, like because we're doing something to feel good rather than to look good.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Couldn't agree more. I think the old days were filled with, like do this exercise to lose this much calorie or lose this much weight. And I used to see that everywhere especially on YouTube when I started my workout journey at home, like I try to look for workouts and then it's all like, do this workout in 30 days and you're going to lose 5 kilos or, do this workout in 30 days and you're going to have abs. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then later on, I found out it's not about that at all. That is just the wrong way to look at exercising and it defeats the whole purpose.
Rather than the process.
Yeah.
Like kind of zest, the doing.
Exactly. Well, if I lose 5 kilos in 30 days, then what? Am I going to stop? Am I just like stopping there because I've lost 5 kilos?
Achieved, tick, done.
Yeah, so I can gain that right back in 3 days.
That means I can eat more ice cream, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, let's do that. It's I think it's just does not really work that way, especially in the sense of living zestfully. Like I have found personally that I do feel so much better and I'm a better person. Thanks to the fact that I'm going to the gym pretty much every day and doing some sort of exercise. And I do love yoga, and being able to connect with my body and, spending that time on myself. My friend was saying something because I've been moving house and it's been like a really stressful process.
It is moving house,
but I still go to the gym. And then my best friend, she looked me dead in the eye and she's like, how are you doing that? Like you're moving today and you went to the gym. Are you crazy? And I'm like, no, actually, that's how I'm staying sane. But that's like routine, like if I don't have that part of my routine, I would feel weird about it. So I love it. I think, everyone should try some sort of movement that works for them. It doesn't have to be weightlifting.
Feels good.
Yeah, totally.
Even dance.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There are so many dance studios nowadays. If you're feeling funky, you can just get, Nintendo Switch and, get Just Dance, that's fun. So many ways to get movement into our lives. But, the number one excuse that people normally have is, I don't have time. I know you're a busy person. How do you make time?
Well, I find I sleep better when I lift before bed. So after dinner, I lift, and I have a swim, because I have one of those gyms. It's not a bougie gym; it's a community gym. But like, I love to lift, and then swim, and then I shower, and then I go to bed, and I sleep better. So I save time by being able to sleep well.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true because sometimes we just toss and turn in bed, cannot sleep at all because the winding down for a lot of us is look at our phone.
Yeah, look at the phone or watch some TV with the lights bright. And that's the thing, when the lights are bright and then we turn the lights off and try and sleep, the body is like, nah, let's not do that. That's so abrupt.
Yeah.
It needs some dim lighting, some gentle kind of, transition period.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Totally. I love that. Well, hopefully our audience is inspired to get some sort of movement today. That's part of how you move towards a more zestful life, because I think a lot of the times it's just, for me, I realized there was a time I didn't exercise at all. I used to exercise a lot and then I just stopped. And then the whole year of me not exercising, I'm like, something's wrong.
It's
I don't feel
kind
okay.
of warning sign.
Yeah. I mean, I still went for long walks and things like that, but it's not the same as getting your heart rate up, and actually do some sort of like exercise that would increase your heart rate and get you to really focus. Because I feel like when I'm walking, I'm just like walking, I'm like kind of like zoning out a little bit.
Yeah, not present.
Yeah. But when I do fitness circuits, I have to focus.
Yeah.
Because I could trip, I could, injure myself if I'm not paying attention. And actually, a funny story, the first time I did Pilates, I was like, oh, okay, rope. Okay, I'll pick it up. And I almost fell because I didn't have, I didn't pay attention to, tensing my core and not having that balance. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, okay, so this is way much more than just, increasing movement in my life. It's actually paying attention. And I talked to my gym buddy, my friend, one day after the gym, and we were saying, oh, like when I was thinking about this, I almost fell. And she was like, me too. I did the same thing. Like I was thinking about something I had to do and then I lost my balance. And I'm like,
It's like the absence of presence. And especially when I was writing my thesis, I used to do box fit classes.
Okay.
And I guess that's the only cardio, but I didn't do the skipping rope. I can't possibly have asthma, but not for me.
Okay.
But you have to be present because if you are not present, you'll get a knock in the face. It very much forces you to be very present.
That is so good. That's such a good example. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Lots of different kinds of exercises we've covered today. And it is not a podcast about exercises, but in a way it is, because I think that's how we add more zest into our lives. If anyone is in doubt and kind of not sure where to start, I think it's such a great way to get started, find that balance in life. That's good.
So many things to kind of do to bring more zest, whether it be movement or kind of connection with friends, like doing enjoyable stuff, like concerts, comedy show, all kinds of things that kind of, it's not just physical kind of health, but, also like social kind of emotional kind of connection, deep kind of enriching friendships. That's like, I want to be around that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, if you really want people to be around you, you gotta have to, fill your cup. First of all, what do you enjoy? That's what I've been talking to myself about. Like, I think it's been really interesting to kind of see, okay, when am I the best, and when do my friends want to be around me? Well, I guess friends love me all the time, but there are certain times when I'm a bit more fun. So when I feel like I'm bringing more to the friendship, I have that sense of zest in my life. That's when they're most excited, and vice versa. When they bring a lot with ideas or with games or with whatever, it's good, but all of that starts with filling my cup, because if I have nothing to offer, then they don't want to be around me. I don't want to be around them. And, it starts there. I think it's just good to get to know yourself as well. What do you enjoy doing? So then you can, bring that to the friendship. You know exactly who you are, so you can kind of share your perspective and, you show up in your life. I feel like that's really important.
Being present.
Sometimes, we are not present. We're not showing up fully. And it's just, I think it's a clear sign of not having that sense of zest. And again, it is okay as a signpost that we need to, take care of ourselves. But yeah, I guess it's a really good point to kind of round it out to our audience that it's a really great thing to have, zest in our lives and to have that zestful mindset. But if you don't right now, it's not a bad thing. It's just a signpost that you need
reflecting
to
of the how you are right now.
Yeah, take care of your well-being, do a bit more self-care, get to know yourself better.
Surround yourself with people that make you feel good.
Yeah, 100%. So true. Okay, well, we have covered theoretical stuff, practical stuff, and now we're going to have open mic for you. As I mentioned earlier, this is your platform to talk about anything you're passionate about. Well, I know exactly what you're passionate about, so take it away.
Yeah. So I have started a new trans and gender diverse mental health service because there just isn't enough services for trans and gender diverse people. So it's called Trans Space. We have our first site in Brunswick that I've started up. We currently have 4 practitioners at the moment, with me being one of them. A fantastic OT, dietitian, a counsellor, and myself. And it's our first site. So the plan is basically to build this site and then once it goes really well, open up another site in rural regional Victoria, like Ballarat, Bendigo. Once we've taken care of Victoria rural regional and Victoria in general, to have one site in every state in Australia. And the whole purpose for this is trans mental health. Like, I don't know if you know the research and how it's going, but like basically mental health isn't going so well for a lot of trans and gender diverse people. And part of that is that there's not services available. There's long wait lists where there can be up to 3-4 years for, say, some services for gender centres and things like that, and you're on the wait list without any support. So my thing with Trans Space is to make a space that we can improve mental health for trans people and to have it multidisciplinary, because mental health's only one component. Then there's kind of physical health. So we would love to get some GPs and nurses in, some speech pathologists, to make it like a one-stop kind of shop, because at the moment, the mental health, it's not good enough for trans and gender diverse people. Like we're really struggling and we need services. So I've created Trans Space with the hope that we can better trans mental health care.
Yeah, well, beautiful. And I'm so glad that you're doing the work that you're doing. It's really important for, the population that you're serving, because it sounds to me like, they really need help. And, I'm glad that you're bringing that help where it's not available. And I think you mentioned that this is the only mental health facility for trans people in Australia.
That's private. Yeah, absolutely. There isn't really a trans kind of private mental health sort of service. It's not really a thing where everything's under the one kind of roof.
Yeah.
We have, I guess, practitioners that work with trans and gender diverse people, but are often spread out, like all across places. And the idea of Trans Space is to bring it all under one roof, under the one hub, to kind of connect people.
That's super cool.
Under the one sort of branding and the one kind of space. It's really hard to find support for trans and gender diverse people because we're spread out.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can make things a little bit easier for community and improve some things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the wonderful work you're doing. I think it's great. It sounds like it's a great start of something that could be really big scale in the future. When you said you wanted to take it regional, maybe to other states as well. Yeah, exciting times. And I had a great time talking to you about Zest. Again, I don't think I've mentioned the word zest so many times in a day before.
It's a word we don't use often.
We don't use it enough. So I think this is a really good conversation about it. And thanks for being here.
And thanks for having me.
You have been listening to Doing Well, the Wellbeing Science Insights Podcast, produced by the Wellbeing Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content.
More
of our work can be found on our website, we.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Lu Ngo. Thanks for tuning in.